What's the quickest you've noped out of a job? It was a shop that refurbished train suspension hydraulics. 40% of the guys were missing at least part of a finger. Maintenance guy was missing 4 on one hand and 5 on another. Half the guys were high and the guy training me stormed out halfway through the second day. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to dip out now. How was work? Great. I even have a nickname. 10 Fingers. Walked into a group interview as a young moron. The second I heard the word vector marketing I bounced. Many years ago I worked at a popular sports bar as a line cook. First day they had me train with a guy who didn't speak English for 2 hours. Not a huge deal. Mostly you observe people in a kitchen and that's how you learn. Owner came back and said she was scheduling me to be alone the next day. Which was Super Bowl Sunday. Noped out of there so fast. Left right then and there. I worked for a newspaper for most of a week. I was expected to use my own laptop and software. No IT and I'd have to share logins and passwords with 3 other people and guess when they would need them. 1 week. It was 1985. And a collections agency was looking for an IT guy. It was basically desktop support on some IBM PCs. It took me a week to realize what a soul deadening place that was and I bolted. It was mutual. Actually, they saw how I was reacting to some of the techniques the collectors used. The targets were mostly old people who were encouraged to sell family heirlooms and the like to pay off debts. I left halfway through the orientation when I found out it was a job selling those expensive vacuum cleaners door to door. Found out that the educational assistance they touted in their advertisement applied only to full-time employees and that they both defined full-time as no fewer than 40 hours and kept anyone who would apply for that assistance from ever being qualified for it. None of this was advertised and the people I interviewed with assured me, a college student, that working 21 hours a week would get me the benefits. Too bad I read my contract before signing it and called them out. Don't f***ing lie to your employees. Especially during an interview on something that can be easily and swiftly disproven. If you're willing to lie to me about this, what else are you willing to lie to me about? I did their training before being offered my contract. So I count it as having worked there. BTW. I was interviewing for a contract position at a very small game development company. They told me they were looking for someone to help finish up an existing project. Literally. The game looked like it was made in MS Paint. As if they had just hired some random guy off the street and asked them to make some art for them. Granted, it's a mobile game and sold for the standard $0.99. So maybe that's not the worst. But the game itself doesn't look engaging at all either. But I figure, worst comes to worst, I could make some money on the side with some low effort work. Then they told me that my pay would be a percentage of the sales. Noped right out of that one. A game? Flappy Bird. I was pretty well qualified. But between jobs and receiving financial support, I get an interview with a small company. I'm looking forward to earning some money again. The boss interviewer is a dick. At one point he asks me if I feel guilty that people like him are supporting me. I politely inform him that he'll have to support me a bit longer while I find a suitable job. I tell him that the interview is over. But thanks for your time. I went for a trial shift with a door-to-door sales company. The guy I was partnered up with told me that if he didn't make above the target sales he was coming out with the equivalent of $3 per hour. Which in the UK is well below minimum wage. This was commission only self-employed role. Noped all the way home that day. Worked in a bakery. It was my first day, so I get there in the morning to meet everyone. Then they have me grease up baking trays for the others to fill. I lift up the first tray and like 10-15 cockroaches just scatter everywhere from under the tray. I tell the guy showing me the work that there were cockroaches and he just shrugged. This was all in the back store. Customers were about 10 feet away. So I tell the guy that I'm not feeling too well after about an hour of doing that and I head to the bathroom. When I came out I told him I couldn't do that job and he told me to get a real job then. So I left and got myself a proper job. TLDR. I had an interview at what I thought was a regular steakhouse in a new town I had just moved to. The interview went well. It was just before the restaurant opened so it was pretty empty. The end. A waitress starting her shift walked by in assless chaps and a thong. Turns out that was their uniform. The manager called like 30 minutes later saying I got the job. Two different ones. First was a scheme going door to door soliciting donations for the environment. You had to get 5 donations or something to get paid. I worked one 4 hours training shift. Then left. Second was door to door dollar item sales. After an hour, I realized it was MLM and told them no. But since I was in their van, I had to stay the whole 8 hours. Reading through this whole thread, I've learned to say no as soon as a van-in introduced. It was my first day working for a family business that had just bought the equipment necessary to install underground fiber optic lines. They had previously been realtors but had read an article in an entrepreneur's magazine that said $1 mil gross was common. They pulled their 14 and 17 years old out of school to act as laborers and the mom and dad were going to run separate crews. I was their first employee hire. As I was setting up my bore path, the mom told me we didn't need to expose an electrical line. We would just drill a few feet underneath it and we didn't need to expose it. I told her that was ridiculous, reckless and dangerous. The husband then came over and wanted to fight me for insulting his wife and not 30 seconds into his tirade the 14 and 17-year-old drilled directly into a large electrical line, which pops the transformer and sounds like an explosion. As I was walking away the father went from wanting to fight me to chasing his 17 years old around a retention pond. The mom was begging me not to leave. Nope. Graphic design from home job. Nailed the interview. Had absolute confidence I could provide this dude what he was asking for. Got the job. And the first thing he said was to take a rather large check that would be mailed to me and buy my equipment. It was supposed to be from a special vendor that was to engrave the laptop and provide software. It was a scam. I looked up his business on Google. Rather than through the link he sent me, I found the exact same SHTTY website with dozens of different CEOs. Told him to not send me a check and that I was not longer interested. The check was going to be fake. And the money I would be sending to the vendor would end up being my own once the bank found out. Edit: this was a legit job posting on LinkedIn that was from a premium member who had a company page on the site with a physical location. I'm used to working with small businesses so nothing really seemed out of place aside from his very odd English. This quarter you guys have really achieved a lot for the company and surpassed our expectations. Just a reminder. We will be having to lay some more people off soon. Peace out. I was unemployed for a couple months and started applying for pretty much any job I could do. This one was a basic small biz IT support contractor. The employee the interviewer introduced to me mouthed run when he turned his back. Cold calling people about injury claims. Have you been injured in the past 3 years? That kind of thing. The thing that really irked me was that all of the people I called in those 20 minutes were polite. Said they're not interested. And they were just sitting down for dinner. I realized it was a horrible job and I was in no way cut out for it. I left after 20 minutes and just walked out the door without a word. I've had one tell me I was in a car accident in the last 2 years. All I could say was damn. I went to my orientation at a boot factory. They're government contracted and so pay minimum wage. So I figured I'd work there a while and look for something better. After we do the usual paperwork signing and such, we're taken as a group onto the factory floor for a tour. It's hot. It's crowded. It stinks. And everyone working looks annoyed by our presence. Okay. I guess not everyone loves their job, right? No biggie. I'm sure this won't be so bad. Then our guide informs us in no uncertain terms that our co-workers quite often give new people bad information to get them in trouble or make them mess up. They'd even be the ones to rat you out. Then we're told that our foreman is the type to yell for no reason. Ask people if they are drunk in an accusatory way for no reason. And is generally a giant asshole. I took a few moments to think after these last revelations. Said nah. And walked out of the building without a word to anyone. Fuduakvachti. Captain. I'm not putting up with all of that for $8 and some change an hour. I work as a nanny. But when I first got into childcare I was just babysitting. So it was my first night babysitting for this one family. Things went well, changed some diapers. Put the baby to sleep and that was about it. Parents come home and are very drunk. They asked me to stay for a little while after they got back, which was weird. Then they offered me, a 16-year-old at the time, a drink. Feeling a little pressured I took it and just sipped on it. Then the mom got really close to me and says I probably shouldn't be driving home after having a drink. Once again feeling a little pressured I was thinking about petting. So I asked if I'd just be sleeping on the couch. I'll never forget her next words to me. She says, "Oh no honey. You'll be going to bed with us." I noped out of there so fast. I think I ran to my car but it was kind of just a panicked blur. Left my purse there and everything. Second day at Route 21 and the managers plus other co-workers all went out to lunch together and left me alone in the store. I wasn't able to ring up people yet and the store was packed. I just walked out. When I was 16 I had an interview at a local pizza place in a not so good part of town. I was hired and as I was walking out 2 guys came in and robbed the place. The manager gave them the money and the register and they ran out. I looked at him and he said, "You get used to it." I never went back. Well, mayor, you get used to it. Worked at major greeting card store in order to make a few extra bucks. Already worked at major retailer Mart and major grocery store. The first day, I sat through several videos. Each of them encouraged me to follow customers throughout the store and suggest they purchase laser cut cards, which were apparently all the rage at the time. When I came back to the floor for my training, the manager encouraged me to adopt a hand signal to show the cashier so I could discreetly show them that I was responsible for the sale of that particular card. Then, before I left, the manager asked to frisk me as a part of major greeting card company's policy to reduce employee-based shrinkage. When I said I didn't think that was entirely appropriate, they said a pat down or a search of purses, book bags was a condition of employment. So, I walked out the door. Edit. Was told to work inside an industrial metal shredder that didn't have a safety lockout. Held to the FCK nope. Was hired as an intern manager for a local non-profit recycling plant. This meant I would hire and train interns for this amazing work opportunity. Turns out for them interns meant working for free doing basically everything for the organization event and marketing wise while also cleaning the bathroom and taking out trash for the whole place every week. That's actually super illegal for being way too close for slave labor. I was on contract for minimum 6 months. But I managed to get out of it after 2. I ain't risking my career for their shady business practices. Edit. While yes, it is legal for non-profits to have unpaid interns and give them a level of responsibility, this place had no marketing or event planning staff and relied on interns to be able to do the jobs and have the quality of a professional. Besides always being hounded by the seer that the interns who had no experience or training wasn't producing the same quality of work someone who's been in the industry for at least a few years, this does enter a grey area where even a full non-profit may be protected. Wanted something part-time when I was at uni. Applied for at the local cinema chain. And got an interview. It was one of those high turnover places that meant if you got an interview there was a 95% chance you got a job. Guy on the box office radioed to his manager and was told to take me to room 7. We got to room 7 and wait. And wait. And wait. About 25 minutes pass before the manager starts screaming abuse over the radio because we were not in room 2. So after room 2 we go on the other side of the building, 15 screen cinema. The manager starts trying to turn on the charm and I basically say, if that's how you treat your employees in front of job candidate, there is no way I am ever working for you, and ask the other guy to show me out. I'm sure it made no difference to his behavior, but it saved me a lot of potential abuse. I worked in Claire's for one day. At the end of the shift she asked me to put a bucket load of tiny earring packages back on the walls. A few hours later I finished and apparently misplaced a few of them, so she threw all of them to the floor and said to do it again. It was listed as a marketing position. The guy doing the interview started showing me and the other candidate how sharp Cutco knives are. Turns out it was a pyramid scheme. Guy kept asking if I wanted to sign on to buy some knives to sell. The other candidate went to the bathroom and never returned. I felt really awkward. Also needed to wait to be picked up. So I stayed for the whole thing. I once saw Craigslist ad for a stereo salesman. I showed up to a warehouse where a bunch of dudes got into a minivan. The owner told me to go on a run and see how it is and then talk about the job. Turns out all these guys did was lie and con. They would go up to strangers and say, hey man, my cousin got this stereo but he just got arrested and I don't need it. It's worth $500 but I'll gladly sell it for $200, then use pushy tactics to get people to go to the ATM and give them money. The system was a piece of shitty off-brand and I overheard the owner saying in bulk it only cost him $20 to buy. Yeah. I noped out of this pretty quickly. I also called the police. This was in 2010. JCPenney. I came to work to set up shelves and things. Store technician. But my boss handed me a mop and said someone lady pooped in an aisle when she didn't get her way. I handed the mop back. Said I'm not hazmat certified but he is. And noped out. Not me. But at Best Buy an older gentleman decided to work for the holiday season. Halfway through his first day, once the lines in the mobile department started picking up, he straight took off his blue shirt, threw it on the ground and just walked out. We hailed him as a hero for years after that. My first day on a carpentry job, a 20-year-old kid, I was 22 at the time, shot me with a nail gun from about 20 feet away. He thought it was hilarious and so did everyone else, including the company owner. FCK that kid. And everyone at that job. I shot the new kid with a nail gun. LOL. Asterisk. Ugh. It was a liquor store in a not so good part of town. Part of the orientation included advice on keeping the pervs away from the dirty magazines. If you don't, you'll find them jacking off back here. And how to use the shotgun by the register when, not if, the store gets robbed. It's better if they're not around to tell their side of the story. Nope. Edit. It was a summer job when I was home from college. It paid min wage. $4.25 per hour I think. The rack where the PRN mags were was visible from the counter. But the pervs would walk by the rack, grab one and head for the back corner where they'd do their deed. I did not fire the shotgun as a part of the training. But I was and still am familiar with firearms. You'll want to take a step back before you pull the trigger. Getting all those bits of brain and skull out of your hair is a bitch. Here. Let me show you how the barcode scanner works. Get an interview for data analysis mining job. Go to the interview. After repeatedly dodging my questions about their business, they finally admit they are one of those companies that advertises timeshare properties. Come and listen to our sales pitch and win a free gift. They need someone to mine prospect data and create their mailing and phone list. I noped out of there. Didn't even collect my free gift. Needed a part-time job for the summer. Saw an ad on Craigslist for receptionist. Called. Left a voicemail. Got a call back for an interview and was hired on the spot. It was for Vector Marketing. I wasn't selling knives because I was a receptionist, but I was calling people others had put down. Which was usually everyone in their phone list who they hadn't talked to in years. The lady training me said to call the ghetto names first because they're usually home during the day.